The air in my backyard was heavy with the scent of applewood and pecan smoke. Curling up from my pride, enjoy a 1,500-pound custom-built offset smoker I called the Titan. My name's Ethan Caldwell, and I'm a chef. Not the kind you see yelling about risotto on TV, but the kind who knows that fire, meat, and patience can weave something pure, something real. By day, I run a tight ship at a bistro in downtown Willow Creek, a small town in Northern California where the redwoods cast long shadows. By night, I'm a pitmaster, turning my backyard into a sanctuary of slow-cooked brisket and ribs. My neighbors in Crestwood Heights, a neighborhood obsessed with manicured hedges and spotless driveways, used to call my yard the best barbecue joint in town. I had the permits, the logs, everything by the book. But to the Homeowners Association president, Margaret Hensley, my smoker was a blight on her pristine vision of suburban perfection. I knew she'd come for me eventually. I just didn't expect her to stoop so low. It was the Saturday before Memorial Day weekend in 2024, my busiest time of the year. The Titan was humming, loaded with briskets and pork shoulders, the kind of cook that takes 12 hours and a lot of love. The air was rich with the smell of rendered fat and spice, the kind that makes your stomach growl and your soul feel right. My prep tables gleamed, sanitized to a fault. My probes were dialed in, reading a perfect 203 degrees Fahrenheit on a brisket, that magic number where collagen turns to velvet. Then I saw Edo White County van pulling up to my curb, followed by 2 police cruisers. My gut twisted. 2 officials stepped out, Health Inspector Paul Grayson and Fire Marshal Lisa Torres. 2 cops trailed them, hands on belts, like my backyard was a crime scene. Across the street, Margaret stood on her flawless lawn, clutching garden shears like a queen with a scepter, her lips curled in a smug little smile. "Morning, folks," I said, wiping my hands on my apron, keeping my voice steady. I'm not one to lose my cool, though I'll admit I've got a temper. "Something I can help you with?" Paul looked uneasy, avoiding my eyes. "Ethan, we've got a complaint. 2, actually. Food poisoning. 2 households got sick after your last cookout." I felt a flash of rage, clean and sharp, like a knife through butter. "That's impossible," I said, my voice low. "My process is airtight. Every piece of meat is cooked to spec, held at safe temps." "No way." Margaret was pretending to trim her roses, but her eyes were locked on us, drinking in the scene. Paul sighed. "Procedure, Ethan. 2 credible complaints mean a mandatory shutdown until we investigate." "Shutdown," I said, the word heavy, like a brick in my chest. "I've got 300 pounds of meat in there, orders for half the block. This is my Super Bowl." Lisa, who'd once complimented the Titan's welds, spoke up, her tone flat. "Health order trumps everything. We have to secure the premises." "Secure the premises." My backyard, where my kids' old swing set still stood. I wanted to point at Margaret and tell them to investigate the real poison in this neighborhood. But I'm a pro. I swallowed the fury, let it harden into resolve. "What do you need?" I asked. They walked through my setup, inspecting my spotless tables, my sanitizer buckets. Paul slapped a red sticker on the Titan's cooking chamber, bold black letters screaming, "Closed by order of County Health Department." A pop of fat hit the coals, a flame flared, and I moved on instinct, cut the air intake, dropped the lid, slid a pan under the grate. Lisa checked my extinguisher tag and nodded. "Textbook," she said. One cop smirked, the other flinched. I logged the chamber temp, 225 degrees Fahrenheit. Margaret raised her phone across the street, filming like a vulture. The smell of my brisket, once a symbol of joy, now reeked of defeat. Inside, I didn't panic. I channeled the anger into process. Chefs live by 2 rules: control your environment and document everything. Paul and Lisa agreed to return in an hour to review my records, a small courtesy. I pulled out my binder, labeled Titan Operations Manual. Inside was my arsenal: food handler's license, county permits for small batch sales, business registration. I laid them out on my dining table like a general prepping for war. My digital thermometer logged every cook ambient temps, meat temps, holding temp sense to a spreadsheet. I printed the graphs from the cookout in question. Brisket climbing to 203 degrees Fahrenheit. Pork, but holding steady above 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Far from the danger zone. Bacteria couldn't survive that. I had receipts for gloves, sanitizer, butcher paper. A porch camera showed me working like a surgeon, clean, precise, gloved. My kitchen gleamed. This wasn't just a defense, it was my craft on trial. When Paul and Lisa returned, I walked them through it, pointing to the graphs, the permits, the footage. Nothing survives these temps, I said. No pathogens, no bacteria. Paul studied the logs, impressed. This is tighter than most restaurants I inspect, he admitted. Lisa nodded. No fire code issues. You're clean. So, you'll take the sticker off? I asked, hope flickering. Paul sighed, heavy. I can't. 2 notarized complaints mean the shutdown stands until they're withdrawn or disproven by lab tests. My hands are tied. The hope died, replaced by dread. So I'm guilty until proven innocent? It's public health, Paul said, apologetic. We assume the worst to protect people. I glanced out the window. Margaret's husband, Tom, was walking their dog, a nervous guy who always seemed to shrink in her shadow. He saw me, panicked, and yanked the dog away. He knew something. I turned to Paul. This is a setup, and you're letting it happen. My job's the health code, not neighborhood drama, he said, leaving his card. Get those leftovers tested at a certified lab. By evening, a news van parked on my street. A reporter with perfect hair stood in front of my azaleas, calling my home a public health hazard. The 6 p.m. broadcast labeled me unlicensed, despite my permits. Phones buzzed. The neighborhood text chain split support from my regulars, suspicion from others. Margaret's HOA email hit like a grenade. Urgent public health warning. Warning of unregulated enterprises threatening family safety and property values. It was a public execution, and she'd handed every neighbor a stone. I needed help. I found Laura Bennett at a dimly lit bar in Willow Creek, a defense lawyer who could make a brick confess. We'd had a fling once, built on whiskey and respect, but tonight was all business. I laid it out. The shutdown, the news, the email. Laura listened, sipping bourbon, her eyes sharp. She's not just shutting you down, she said. She's torching your life. This is a smear campaign, Ethan, and she thinks she's fighting a hobbyist. She's about to meet a chef who lives for evidence and heat. We're going to burn her case to ash. Laura's office was a war room, not a law library. A massive whiteboard dominated one wall. Most lawyers use timelines, she said, tossing me a marker. We're building a menu appetizer to dessert. I grinned, feeling alive again. We listed every customer from the cookout, cross-referenced with the HOA directory. My logs, receipts, and footage went up, a fortress of truth. The complainants, listed as John Smith and Jane Doe, were ghosts we needed to unmask. Laura filed for discovery to get their names. Meanwhile, I sent frozen samples brisket, pork, ribs to a private lab. Waiting for results felt like a life sentence. Margaret strolled past my house daily, smirking at the red sticker. She thought I was done. The lab report came on a Tuesday. Laura called, her voice electric. Grand slam, Ethan. 0 coliform, 0 E. coli, 0 salmonella. Your process is so clean, the lab director called it sterile. The county's report backed it up. Paul called too, relieved. Cleanest samples we've tested all year. The order's lifting soon, but paperwork takes days, and the complaints haven't been withdrawn. The news ran a follow-up, framing it as a mystery illness. Margaret spun it. We're relieved the source wasn't local, but unregulated businesses remain a threat. My victory was twisted into her narrative. Laura was undeterred. Now we prove she's a criminal. Discovery revealed the complainants, Greg Harper and Emily Chun. Laura's request for neighbor footage struck gold with Sam, a retired techie who loathed Margaret after she fined his non-compliant mailbox. His 8 HD cameras caught her white SUV at 10:14 p.m., handing Greg a thick envelope cash. Another camera showed Emily at a strip mall, leaving Hannah Sushi with a takeout bag at 8:32 p.m., an hour after eating my pork. Laura's PI found a receipt in the restaurant's dumpster. Emily's name, raw seafood order, a textbook poisoning source. HOA records revealed a community outreach slush fund with 2 $500 cash withdrawals days before the shutdown, labeled resident assistance. A draft of Margaret's smear email, written 3 days before the cookout, sealed it. She'd planned it all. In the grocery store, Tom cornered me by the carrots, whispering, She's out of control. It was just supposed to scare you. He fled before I could respond. Laura filed a motion, attaching the footage, receipts, and email metadata. The case wasn't just about BBQ, it was about fraud, conspiracy, and abuse of power. The courtroom was a cold, sterile box, nothing like my smoky backyard. Margaret sat across from me, her navy blazer crisp, but her confidence was fraying. Judge Elena Rivera, known for cutting through nonsense, presided. Laura's strategy was surgical. She presented the lab reports, my logs, the footage, the receipts, and texts between Margaret, Greg, and Emily. Stick to the food poisoning story. Money on delivery. Margaret's testimony collapsed under Laura's questions. The jury watched, riveted, as her lies unraveled. Judge Rivera issued a directed verdict. I won on all counts: defamation, conspiracy, fraud. Margaret was ordered to pay damages, legal fees, and read a public apology at the next HOA meeting. A week later, Crestwood Heights gathered in the community center. Margaret, pale and hollow, read the court's words. She'd lied, paid for false complaints, misused funds, all because she hated my smoker. The room was silent, heavy with the weight of her fall. She left, Tom trailing her. The board elected a new president, Sarah Monroe, who promised fairness. I fired up the Titan for a free cookout in the park. Neighbors came, loyalists, doubters, even Paul and Lisa with their families. Sam got free brisket for life. Sarah asked me to consult on new bylaws. Kids ran, sauce smeared and happy. Laura nodded from a tree, her smile saying, "We won." The smoke smelled like healing, like community reborn. But here's where it gets messy, folks. Was Margaret just a control freak? Or was she a symptom of something bigger? HOAs wielding unchecked power? Should I have fought harder from the start or played nice? And what about the neighbors who turned on me? Can you really forgive when trust is broken? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that cut deep. What would you have done in my shoes? Let's stir the pot.